Behind Manchester City's trophies and glory, a clock is ticking. One that could either vindicate everything they've built or tear it all down. 115 charges, a secret investigation, a hacker who may have accidentally exposed football's greatest scandal. Was it brilliance or deception all along? What happens next could change football forever. This isn't a rumour, this is real. And in the next few minutes you're going to learn the full, shocking story of how Manchester City might have cheated their way to the top, or are they innocent? Here's what makes this whole situation absolutely mental. While facing potential destruction, City are acting like they own the world. £175 million spent this winter, massive contracts signed, zero signs of worry. Either they know something we don't, or they're playing the most dangerous game in football history. Because if they're wrong about this, we're not just talking about fines or point deductions, we're talking about watching one of football's greatest empires collapse in real time. The verdict is coming, and when it drops, every trophy cabinet, every record book, every legend in modern football is going to be questioned. From nobodies to champions. Back in 2008, Manchester City were basically the definition of mediocrity. Mid-table, overshadowed by their neighbours, the kind of team you'd completely forget existed until they randomly popped up on Match of the Day. Then, Sheikh Mansour arrived with his billions, and suddenly everything changed overnight. Fast forward to today, and City have collected 8 Premier League titles, finally captured that elusive Champions League trophy, and become the team everyone either loves or absolutely loves to hate. However, according to the Premier League, this whole transformation wasn't just funded by oil money. It was built on over a decade of systematic rule-breaking that makes other financial scandals look amateur. In February 2023, the Premier League dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. 115 charges against Manchester City, covering everything from fabricated sponsorship deals to hidden payments to players and managers. We're not talking about a few accounting mistakes here. We're talking about the Premier League basically accusing City of cheating their way to dominance with a long-running scheme of financial manipulation that lasted over 10 years. The numbers are absolutely staggering when you break them down. 54 counts of providing false financial information, 14 counts of hiding payments from investigators, multiple breaches of financial fair play rules, and 35 counts of basically telling investigators to get lost when they came asking questions. But here's the crazy part that nobody talks about. This investigation almost never happened at all, and it all started with a hacker who probably had no idea he was about to blow up the entire football world. The emails that changed everything. Real story. Meet Rui Pinto, a Portuguese hacker who decided to peek behind the curtain of European football back in 2018. He leaked thousands of internal documents to German newspaper Der Spiegel through football leaks, and hidden in those files were emails that painted a completely different story of how Manchester City really operated behind closed doors. These weren't just normal business emails discussing transfer targets or training schedules. They allegedly showed City inflating sponsorship deals with companies such as Etihad Airways and Etisalat to make it look like they were earning way more money than they actually were. The emails revealed something even more shocking: secret payments that were allegedly kept completely off the books and hidden from every authority that should have known about them. Roberto Mancini, City's manager from 2009 to 2013, apparently had 2 contracts running simultaneously. One official contract for managing City, and another mysterious consulting contract with a UAE club that just happened to be owned by the same people who own City. That second contract allegedly paid him more than his official City salary, which is absolutely mental when you consider the implications. Then there's Fordham Sports Management, a shell company that supposedly handled around £11 million a year in image rights payments that never appeared on City's official accounts. 2 sets of books, one for the authorities and one showing what was really happening behind the scenes. UEFA tried to nail City for this stuff back in 2020, hitting them with a European ban and a €30 million fine that should have been devastating. But City fought back hard, took the case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and got the whole thing thrown out because UEFA couldn't prove enough, and too much time had passed since the alleged violations. That's when the Premier League decided it was their turn to have a go, and unlike UEFA, they had something much more powerful: unlimited time and unlimited jurisdiction to investigate whatever they wanted. The trial that could end everything. The Premier League spent years methodically building their case, going through every email, every contract, every suspicious payment with forensic detail. And in February 2023, they unleashed 115 charges that could completely destroy everything City has built over the past decade and a half. But City wasn't about to roll over and accept defeat. They brought in Lord Panic KC, the same legal genius who saved them from UEFA's sanctions. From September to December 2024, football held its collective breath during a 12-week hearing that was basically the sports version of the trial of the century. No cameras allowed, no media circus outside the courtroom, just months of evidence and testimony that could determine whether City's entire success story was real or fake. The independent panel hearing the case has basically unlimited power to punish however they see fit, and here's the key difference from UEFA's approach. The Premier League can impose unlimited fines, unlike UEFA's capped penalties that rich clubs can easily absorb. They can fine City any amount they see fit, dock them points for this season or previous seasons, ban them from signing players, strip their titles from the record books, or even kick them out of the Premier League entirely. City's defence throughout this whole process was straightforward. They've done absolutely nothing wrong, and they're confident the evidence will prove their complete innocence. However, the Premier League came armed with years of preparation, unlimited jurisdiction, and a mountain of evidence that makes their previous UEFA case look trivial. The hearing wrapped up in December, and now everyone's waiting for a verdict that could drop any day and change football forever. But here's what should absolutely terrify every City fan. What if the panel doesn't just find them guilty on a few minor charges, but finds them guilty on most of the serious ones? When success becomes scandal, for the past few minutes, we've been talking about charges and investigations and legal proceedings that feel distant and technical. But now we need to address the massive elephant in the room. What actually happens if Manchester City is found guilty of systematic cheating spanning over a decade? The verdict is expected in summer 2025, and when that announcement finally comes, it won't just be catastrophic news for City fans, it's going to send shockwaves through every corner of football. Because if City really did cheat their way to the top through elaborate financial deception, then everything we believed about modern football competition is fundamentally a lie. However, what if City wins this legal battle completely? Here's the flip side that nobody talks about when discussing this case. If City gets cleared of these charges, they are going to demand blood from everyone involved. We're talking about a club that spent years having its reputation dragged through the mud by media and rival fans, potentially demanding massive compensation from the Premier League for reputational damage and lost commercial opportunities. The Premier League's credibility would be completely shot. How do you accuse a club of 115 serious charges, spend years building what you claim is an airtight case, and then find them innocent without facing serious consequences? Furthermore, if City gets off completely, it could open the floodgates for every wealthy club to push financial boundaries even further, knowing that even the most serious accusations might not result in meaningful punishment. This is where our story stops being about what happened in boardrooms and courtrooms and starts being about what could happen next on football pitches around the world. And trust me, what could happen next is going to make every other football scandal in history look minor. So the verdict comes down, and City gets absolutely hammered, found guilty on enough charges to prove they've been systematically cheating for over a decade through sophisticated financial manipulation. What happens next is going to make your head spin and change football forever. The independent panel doesn't mess around with slap-on-the-wrist punishments. They hit City with a points deduction so massive it sends them tumbling down the Premier League table faster than a stone thrown off a cliff. We're talking about a team that's been fighting for titles every single season, suddenly scrambling desperately to avoid relegation to the Championship. Pep Guardiola, the tactical mastermind who's conquered every league he's touched, is now trying to figure out how to get results against Burnley and Sheffield Wednesday instead of Barcelona and Real Madrid. But that's just the beginning of City's nightmare scenario. Those 8 Premier League titles that transformed them from nobodies into legends, gone. Completely wiped from the official records as if they never existed. Liverpool finally gets their 2018-19 title after losing out by just a single point in one of the most dramatic title races ever. Manchester United gets their 2011-12 title back after Sergio Aguero's last-minute goal broke their hearts. That 2022-23 Champions League trophy that was supposed to be the crowning achievement of City's entire project, that could vanish too, leaving a gaping hole where their greatest moment used to be. Now here's where it gets absolutely mental, and the financial implications become staggering. Under Premier League rules, all those clubs City beat to those titles can claim compensation through arbitration. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, they're all lining up with their lawyers, demanding hundreds of millions in damages for prize money they missed out on, Champions League revenue they lost, and the competitive disadvantage they suffered for over a decade. City could end up paying their biggest rivals more money than they've ever spent on transfers, essentially funding their competitors while destroying their own future. Additionally, while City were allegedly cheating their way to success, clubs such as Nottingham Forest and Leicester were fighting tooth and nail just to survive, some even facing bankruptcy while trying to compete with City's artificially inflated resources. Those smaller clubs didn't just lose matches to City, They lost revenue, opportunities, and in some cases, their very existence in the top flight because they couldn't compete with what may have been illegal spending. But the real chaos starts when the players finally realise what's happening to their careers and reputations. Erling Haaland, one of the best strikers on the planet and someone who could play for any club in the world, suddenly finds himself at a team that might not even be in the Premier League next season. You honestly believe he's sticking around to score goals against League One defenders when he could be winning Ballon d'Ors at Real Madrid or Bayern Munich? The exodus would be absolutely biblical. Players, coaches, staff, anyone with decent options would be running for the exits faster than you can say relegation clause. Every transfer City made with allegedly dirty money gets challenged in court. Every match they won with players they couldn't legally afford gets questioned by rival clubs. The legal battles stretch on for years and years, turning football into a courtroom drama where lawyers make more headlines than goal scorers. Meanwhile, the ripple effects spread across the entire sport in ways nobody anticipated. UEFA has to completely rethink how it polices financial rules across European competition. The transfer market, which has been artificially inflated by City's allegedly illegal spending for over a decade, needs a complete reset that affects every club in Europe. Other teams start wondering if they can challenge old results, old transfers, old everything that happened during City's period. And then there's the devastating human cost that nobody talks about in all these legal discussions. City fans who celebrated those titles, who travelled the world following their team, who genuinely believed they were watching something special unfold. What happens to their memories and emotional investment? The players who believed they were making history and cementing their legacies, do their achievements mean anything anymore when they're built on lies? The young academy players whose dreams were constructed on this foundation, where do they go when it all comes crashing down around them? Football has survived match-fixing scandals, financial collapses and corruption cases that have rocked entire continents and brought down governments. But this situation is fundamentally different from anything we've seen before. If Manchester City is found guilty of these 115 charges, we're not just losing one club's success story, we're questioning the very foundation of how competition works in modern football and whether any of it can be trusted. We've witnessed what happens when an entire league gets caught cheating before, and the scars last for decades. Italy's Serie A still hasn't fully recovered from the Calciopoli scandal back in 2006, when Juventus got relegated and multiple clubs were stripped of titles for match fixing. That was just manipulating individual match results. This could be far worse, because it involves systematic financial deception across an entire era of football. The most twisted part of this whole saga is that City's project was originally supposed to prove something beautiful about football, that with the right investment and smart planning, any club could reach the summit of world football through legitimate means. Instead, it might end up proving that when you systematically break the rules designed to keep competition fair, absolutely everyone loses in the end. Would those titles still have come through brilliant football and smart recruitment? Would Pep still be considered the tactical genius we all believed he was? Would watching them play still have felt as magical as witnessing football perfection? The verdict's coming soon, and with it answers to questions that will either vindicate one of football's greatest success stories or expose it as one of sport's most elaborate and damaging deceptions. Either way, football as we know it is about to change forever, and there's no going back to the way things were before. When City's punishment gets announced, and let's face it, some form of punishment seems inevitable at this point. Which club do you think will benefit the most from their downfall? Will it be Liverpool finally getting the recognition they deserve, United reclaiming their spot at the top, or will a completely different team rise to fill the power vacuum that City leaves behind? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I genuinely want to know which team you think is best positioned to capitalise on City's potential collapse. If you enjoyed this deep dive into football's biggest scandal, smash that like button, subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines, and make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss when we break down the latest developments in this case. The beautiful game is about to get very, very ugly, and we'll all be here watching when it happens.